NBA blockbuster trades that almost happened part 2. Let's jump right in. In 2012, OKC offered James Harden to the Golden State Warriors for Klay Thompson. Now, the Thunder are just coming off of the finals loss to the Miami Heat, and James Harden did not play too good in this series, but he did have an overall great season. He averaged 17 points a game, never starting a single game this season, and he did win Sixth Man of the Year at 22 years old, so he was the second youngest player to win the award at the time. And at this time, he could have been a starter on probably almost any team in the league, but he was a lot more comfortable coming off the bench. As he said, that gave him more freedom to find his spots rather than being on that first unit along with Russ and KD. I think that made total sense for their team. Now, that summer, James was up for an extension. During negotiations, it came out that he wanted a max contract. OKC, being a small market team, not really trying to pay luxury tax. And rumor has it one of the first calls OKC made is to Golden State. Of course, that didn't work out. James goes on to Houston, and he becomes an absolute superstar. Instantly became one of the best scorers in the league, averaging 25 plus points almost every year he was in Houston, and became one of the most dynamic offensive players we've ever seen. Went on to win the league MVP, trademarked the beard, and really became a household name. But this trade would have been crazy. You would have had Klay teaming up with Russ and KD in OKC, and of course you would have had Steph and James teaming up in Golden State. Drop a comment which team you think would be better if this trade did go through. Alright, going to 01. Dallas Mavs offered Dirk and Steve Nash to the Toronto Raptors for Vince Carter and Antonio Davis. Now, this trade would have shook the NBA world to the core, as Steve Nash at this time was 26 years old, averaging about 15 and 7. Dirk was only 22 years old, already averaging almost 22 points a game, 9 rebounds, showing tons of promise. And this was the 1-2 punch in Dallas at the time. It was a very competitive Western Conference at the time as well. They're going against teams like the Lakers with Kobe and Shaq, the Spurs with Tim Duncan and David Robinson, the Kings with Chris Webber and Mike Bibby. The West is no joke at this time, very stiff competition. So in order to be competitive, you need a bona fide superstar. Mark Cuban and the Mavs knew they needed a superstar, so they went out and tried to get one, and Vince Carter. At this time, he's 23 years old and he's taking the league by storm, and Toronto turns this deal down pretty quickly. But had they accepted this trade, maybe the Raptors win a championship sooner than 2019, and maybe the Mavs never win one at all. 2017, the Bucks offered Malcolm Brogdon, Chris Middleton, and a first-round pick to the Cavs for Kyrie Irving. So following the loss in the 2017 NBA Finals, Kyrie Irving wasn't really too happy in Cleveland and requested a trade. Now, this shocked the NBA world as the Cavs were coming off of 3 straight finals trips, and it seemed like Kyrie and LeBron were the perfect pair, as LeBron took most of the ball handler responsibilities and allowed Kyrie to be in a much more natural scoring role where he thrived and didn't really have to worry about getting teammates involved as much, where he could focus on just getting buckets. Now, of course, ultimately Kyrie ends up getting traded to Boston, but I honestly think this trade would have worked better for both parties, but it gave the Cavs a little more to work with in 2018. And honestly, could you imagine Giannis and Kyrie working together? Would have been amazing. I see Kyrie would have been a great fit in that Chris Middleton role where he's hitting the big shots, being the closer, and Giannis still being that guy with the ball in his hands most of the time. Would have been interesting to see if Kyrie stayed in Milwaukee though. 1994, Seattle Supersonics offer Shawn Kemp to the Chicago Bulls for Scottie Pippen. Now, I'm sure we all know Scottie Pippen as the great Chicago Bull, but did you all know he was drafted by the Sonics and traded on draft night to the Bulls for Olden Polynice? Who? Yeah, this has to be one of the worst trades in NBA history. Let me know if you all are interested. I'll make a video on some of the other worst trades in NBA history as well. So this was coming off a year without MJ being there. Pip averaged 22 points a game, shooting almost 50% from the field. So he had a great season. Of course, he was an all-star. He was looked at as one of the best players in the league. Really sucks they traded Pip on draft night. They could have had a super team with all 3 of these guys instead of having to swap these 2 out, or trying to swap these 2 out. In this instance here, you know, like I said, MJ wasn't there, so we would have maybe never even got to see Shawn Kemp and MJ play together. You know, Scottie had one of the biggest campaigns in bringing Jordan back, you know, wearing the shoes, doing everything. So had he been shipped out to Seattle, who's to say that Jordan comes back and they go 3-peat again in Chicago? In 2010, the Suns tried to trade Amar'e Stoudemire to the Cavs for J.J. Hickson, Zydrunas Ilgauskas, and draft accommodations. On the eve of the 2010 trade deadline, Amar'e Stoudemire was a hot commodity. He was on the last year of his deal, and Phoenix had already come to terms with not re-signing him. And of course, Cleveland was in the market for another superstar to pair alongside LeBron James. And at this time, Amar'e was in his prime. He's averaging 23, 24 points a game, about 9 rebounds a game, shooting 55% from the field. He's dunking on everybody. At this time, too, he had a little beef with KG, man, at least in between the lines. Him and KG would really go at it. And with KG being in Boston at this time, this would have been a perfect counter. Now, the reason this deal didn't get done is because Dan Gilbert did not want to part ways with J.J. Hickson. So instead, they go out and get Antawn Jamison, who's at this time pretty washed. And this is what you get LeBron to go into the playoffs with to battle the Big Three in Boston. Amar'e goes offseason signs with New York, and we arrived at being able to see probably one of the most athletic 1-2 punches in NBA history. It would have been amazing seeing LeBron and Amar'e team up in Cleveland. It would have been some epic battles between Cleveland and Boston in the playoffs. KG versus Amar'e, LeBron versus Paul Pierce would have been crazy. And who knows, maybe if they get a superstar like Amar'e in Cleveland, maybe LeBron doesn't run off to Miami and team up with D Wade and Chris Bosh. Maybe he stays in Cleveland. Maybe we never see the beginning of the super team era as we know it today, beginning the NBA. So what do you guys think? Hop in the comment section below. Could Dan Gilbert and the Cleveland Cavaliers have stopped the whole super team era from ever happening by accepting this trade? Yo, don't miss out on any more of this dope content. Make sure you subscribe and follow, like, share, save, all that good stuff, man. Peace.